That's carried. Is there likely to be much debate on item 12? Let's have a go at doing item 12 before morning tea as well. So the draft submission on the reform of the Overseas Investment Act. So the resolution is to approve the draft submission. Are there any questions on this? Okay. Dion's happy to move this. Vicky's happy to second? Yeah. Yep, great. Is there any debate? All those in favour? You'd like to speak to it? Okay, so Vicky.
Exactly what we're doing. The Overseas Investment Treasury currently has a consultation out on the Overseas Investment Act, and one of the questions specifically is about water bottling. So there was a public meeting that Treasury organised in Christchurch. I have to say it was a really interesting meeting. Every person there, because there was a whole range of things they could have been there for, every person there was there on the subject of water bottling, and it's seriously concerned about it. Intriguingly, at the moment, you can, what's regarded as sensitive things that are covered by the Overseas Investment Act include any residential housing subject to a certain value, any block of land over 5 hectares in the rural area, any part of the fishing quota, any land next to a reserve, but ironically not water, which is just amazing. So our suggestion is obviously that water is clearly a sensitive asset and needs to be treated as such in the Act. That was very clearly the view of everybody in the room. And one of the other concerns that we had was that people even who wanted to buy major assets in New Zealand were not checked for their company record or their environmental record, which was a major concern to us. So we have included some other things, but our focus has been on the importance of water and the importance of water bottling and the ability for overseas investors to mine that water, and how the Overseas Investment Act needs to capture that, which it currently completely ignores. So that's the point of the submission. The submissions close tomorrow, so it is important that we get it in.
Thank you. Glenn and then Phil.
Thank you. I like this submission. I like the suggested bullet point on page 154. It's the third bullet point there under 4.8. Consider not only benefits but economic, environmental, social and cultural costs. I've floated the idea before of trying to build the 4 well-beings into the RMA, probably a bit of a moonshot, but actually it would be good, I think, if we could get this Act amended and perhaps to find some way to speak to or into the RMA. I think it may have helped our chances, but that's only surmising with the Commissioner when it came back to trying to be an interested party with that water bottling consent process. So, in terms of community, cultural, other considerations. But I like the submission and I'm glad we're pushing in this direction.
Thank you. Phil.
Thank you, and I appreciate the work that's been done on the submission. Overall, it's really good too. And I understand that when it comes to, for example, levies or taxes on water, that's the government are going to consider that separately.
Yeah. Yes.
But there is part of our submission actually that it infers or implies anyway that in fact water could be extracted for an export, and that part I certainly didn't feel comfortable with, I have to say. The rest of it, in terms of it includes the future impacts of climate change and the environmental impacts, and I think it's really good. So at this stage, especially because of the timing, I'm happy to support it, and especially because the government are conducting a separate review of water charge taxes.
Thank you. Pauline.
Very quickly, I'm supportive of this. I do like the way we have used the term in number 12. We've used the term mining of water resources, and when you think about it as mining, it is actually mining our water. And the other thing is that in number 15, seeking amendments to the Act so that assessments of overseas investments can explicitly consider the environmental impacts of water extraction for water bottling. When we want to consider ourselves a clean, green New Zealand, but how can we do that when we're associating all this massive production of huge amounts of plastic? It's all going into plastic, and plastic bottles, we're effectively exporting the plastic bottles as well. So I think that needs to have a serious look at, and even local water bottlers need to look at that as well, because if we want to reach our climate smart targets, we need to really look at plastics. So that's pretty much all I have to say. I'm very supportive and thank the staff for all the work they've done on it.
Thank you. Dion.
I'll close it off.
Yep.
Are you going to speak?
Well, nobody else is indicating they want to speak, so if you'd like to close the debate, then I'll put the motion. Thank you.
Cool. I was just going to say that, I really support this. It's a good submission. This kind of stuff can be quite dry, but I would encourage anybody who's listening or out there to actually have a look at this and actually make a submission, because this is a very important piece for New Zealand moving forward in the world that we're in now. The point that we have in the conclusion that water is more than just a simple natural resource, and it needs to be afforded specific protections under the Act. That's quite a pointed statement, and I think that really resonates. Well, not resonates. That is that makes our stand on where we see water and how we see water, especially in our city, moving forward, because it is a resource that we need, and it is a resource that can be at risk, and we need to do everything that we can to protect that for our future generations, because water will be, and already is in parts of the world, things that cause massive conflict, and we need to make sure that we have that here. So, yeah, really supportive of this.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? That's carried. Now we'll break for morning tea. So we'll adjourn the meeting until 11 o'clock, at which point we'll move into the presentation to the Water Zone Management Committee. So if I can ask that we are ready to reconvene at 11 o'clock so that we can go straight into those reports. Thank you.